We used to say, as a culture, that someone who took their own life was acting selfish. In fact, I can remember days when we collectively as a society would attempt to persuade someone from killing themselves by reminding them of everyone they'd be hurting and leaving behind. And it's language actually I still hear today out of some people who are unaware of all of the things that you, my friends and listeners, have been learning while you've been tuning into One Broken Mom. Telling someone they are acting selfish is simply another wound of guilt and shame and denying that person's feelings. You are telling them, again, that their feelings don't matter and to think of everyone else instead. You are simply reminding them of what they already feel, that they don't have an ounce of energy or ability to care any more about anyone else, including themselves. So let's remember and think for a moment about this. The single imperative of our brains is to keep us alive. We are wired to survive. So when any one of us is in a place where hastening our death is the normal mode of operation, we don't just have a problem, we have a crisis. Some of you out there may know that we, my family, have been churning through this bitter and scary world of suicide ideation with my own daughter. And this specter adds a terrifying layer to all the normal adolescent parent conflicts that most families deal with. I know nothing can be taken for granted. No threat can be ignored. And I do this, my own healing and my pursuit of knowledge in this show for one reason only, to save my daughter's life. And my son's, quite frankly. In fact, during the week of this recording was one of the hardest that we as a family has had to deal with for quite some time. And I had at my fingertips the phone numbers I needed to get an involuntary admittance into a mental health facility for her. In Washington State, you see, by the age of 13 years old, children must be willing to receive mental health treatment. That is, you can't force your teenagers to see a counselor or therapist if you think that they could actually benefit from it. So if you have a child who's actually in a state of mental health crisis and they refuse to get help, you have to actually have a social worker perform an evaluation and determine if they are truly a danger to themselves, others, or property. And then your child can be forcibly admitted into an inpatient facility. These are not easy things to think about, and they are even less easy to summon the strength to do it if called upon. And so as parents with children in this state, we tend to hope and pray that it will all get better on its own, holding on to this misguided belief sometimes until it's too late. And so for many, suicide is not just a matter of if, but when. And that's the most terrifying thought of all. I carry this burden of constantly asking myself, what if I can't do enough? And I will never be able to let my guard down, pat myself on the back and say, I did it, until I'm in my own grave. And I hope to God that that happens before my children are in theirs. Dying by suicide is a powerful and violent act of betrayal against the basic nature of our own bodies. And it takes over 40,000 people every year, more than mass shootings or homicides overall in the United States, by twofold. In fact, if you look at the Centers for Disease Control statistics, suicide rates are double than homicide in nearly every state. In Washington State, where me and my guest actually live, in 2017, 266 people died by homicide, while 1,297 people died by suicide. I have never been baited into the online political debates around the gruesome acts of violence, such as mass shootings, because first, I do agree they suck. But I am ardent that if you truly want to save lives, then drop the rhetoric. We have to pay attention to childhood experiences and traumas and talk about suicide and suicide ideation with the same passion and fervor and anger and disgust that we've allowed it to go on for as long as it has, taking lives and let alone letting it rise in our country without doing anything to prevent it. And we have to do that instead of honestly giving energy to the less meaningful, but certainly more politically divisive and interesting topics.